All right, hey bookworms, welcome back to Book Summary Podcast. And I love a good deep dive. Today we're tackling. I don't know if we should say tackling or taking on. I think taking on is better.
Yeah, taking on. It's a beast.
We're taking on a beast of a book.
Yeah.
Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment.
Oh.
Now, if you're looking for like a light...
Beach read.
Yeah, light, breezy beach read, this is not it.
No.
Crime and Punishment. This is a dense psychological thriller set in 19th century Russia, and it grapples with huge questions. Questions of morality, guilt, and redemption.
Big questions.
Yeah, big questions. All while taking you on a wild ride through the mind of a murderer.
Yeah, and that's really what's so fascinating about this book. It's not just a whodunit, right?
Well...
Dostoevsky's not interested in a simple mystery. He throws us right into the
deep end.
Yeah, the deep end, the chaotic, swirling thoughts of our protagonist, Rodion Raskolnikov, right from the very first page.
Right from the very first page. So let's talk about Raskolnikov.
Yeah.
Right away, Dostoevsky paints him as...
And incredibly complex.
Yeah, like he's so complex and so...
Bold.
Troubled, yeah. He's a poor ex-student living in squalor in St. Petersburg, and he's
brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant, but he's consumed by this bitter resentment.
Yeah, for the world around him.
For the world around him.
Yeah.
He thinks that he is extraordinary, someone who's above, like, conventional morality.
Yeah, and this belief in his own exceptionalism, that he's somehow it's really at the core of the novel, right?
Yeah.
It leads him to contemplate something truly horrific. The murder of Alyona Ivanovna, a greedy pawnbroker. He sees her as this parasitic figure, someone who preys on the vulnerable and convinces himself that her death would be a benefit to society.
It's chilling. It's so chilling.
It is.
Like, he's trying to justify murder, portraying himself as some sort of, like, righteous vigilante.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing that is maybe even more disturbing is that Dostoevsky makes us kind of understand his twisted logic.
Yeah, you see how his poverty, his alienation, and even his own kind of intellectual arrogance have warped his worldview.
It's like warped his worldview for sure.
And I think it's important to remember the context here. 19th century Russia was a time of immense social upheaval.
Right.
Poverty was rampant. There was this growing sense of disillusionment with traditional morality. Raskolnikov, in many ways, embodies this crisis of faith that was happening all around him.
Totally. He's like this. Yeah, he's the embodiment of...
the struggling everyman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So, okay, so let's talk about the pawnbroker herself. Alyona Ivanovna.
Oh, she's a delight.
Dostoevsky does not hold back.
No, he does not.
When he describes her as this diminutive, withered-up old woman.
With sharp, malignant eyes and a sharp little nose.
You get the sense that she's a really unpleasant person. Someone who embodies greed and exploitation.
Yeah, and this is where Dostoevsky's genius comes in, right?
Okay.
He creates a character in Alyona Ivanovna who is so unlikable, so seemingly deserving of punishment that we almost find ourselves sympathizing with Raskolnikov's murderous thoughts.
I know.
But of course, that's precisely the trap he wants us to fall into.
Right, he's like tricking us.
Right. He's forcing us to confront the darkness within ourselves, the part of us that might be capable of justifying terrible acts in the name of some greater good.
Oh, it's deep. It's like a...
Yeah, it makes you think.
Yeah, it makes you think. It's such a bold move.
It is.
To make the reader question their own moral compass. But let's not forget, this is a psychological thriller. Dostoevsky knows how to build suspense.
Oh, yeah.
He takes us step by step through Raskolnikov's, the planning and the execution of the murder.
Yeah.
And it's a harrowing journey.
It is. The tension is palpable. You see him wrestling with his conscience, battling doubts and anxieties.
Yeah.
Yet still driven by this unshakable belief that he's somehow above the law.
Right.
And then the moment of the murder itself,
oh my God,
is described in vivid, almost brutal detail. Dostoevsky does not shy away from the violence.
Oh.
The blood, the sheer terror of the act.
Yeah. No, it's a lot.
It sticks with you.
It sticks with you. It really sticks with you. And just when we think it can't get any worse,
it does.
There's a horrifying twist. Lizaveta, Alyona's innocent sister, walks in on the scene.
Oh, no.
And in a moment of panic, Raskolnikov kills her too.
He does.
Oh my God.
It's devastating.
Devastating.
And it completely changes the stakes.
Right.
Raskolnikov has now crossed a line from which there's no turning back.
He can't go back.
He can't take it back. He's committed not one, but two murders.
Two murders.
And the weight of his guilt is just going to crush him.
Crush him. So what happens next?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Instead of running, Raskolnikov embarks on this twisted psychological journey,
Oh.
trying to outrun his own guilt and the growing suspicion of those around him.
So does he try to escape? Does he confess? What happens?
Well, he hides the stolen goods under a rock in a courtyard, but he can't hide from his own conscience.
No. So before we get too deep into Raskolnikov's internal turmoil,
Yeah.
let's just take a moment to appreciate Dostoevsky's skill as a writer. He's a master of...
Like psychological realism.
Yes, exactly. He takes us inside Raskolnikov's head, and we experience his paranoia, his delirium, his desperate attempts to rationalize his actions.
It's like being trapped in a nightmare.
It is. It's like a nightmare that you can't wake up from.
Totally. And that's where the real meat of the story lies, right?
Yeah.
The murders are just the catalyst for a much deeper exploration of human nature.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
A deeper exploration.
The struggle between good and evil.
Yeah.
And the possibility of redemption. You know, this is where it gets really juicy.
Okay.
And trust me, you do not want to miss this. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button.
Hit that button.
Make sure those notifications are turned on so you don't miss the next part of our deep dive. We'll be back in a flash.
We'll be right back.
So we left off with Raskolnikov.
Yeah.
Reeling from the murders he's committed.
Right. He's like in this state of complete psychological turmoil.
Yeah.
Almost like he's living this double life.
Mm.
Like outwardly, he's trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but like inwardly,
Oh, yeah.
he's being torn apart by guilt and paranoia.
Totally. And Dostoevsky really puts us through the ringer right alongside Raskolnikov. He details these vivid, almost hallucinatory experiences that Raskolnikov has.
Right.
For instance, there's this encounter with Marmeladov,
Yeah, Marmeladov.
this destitute drunkard who ends up dying after being run over by a carriage.
That scene is so powerful. You see like Raskolnikov's compassion, his humanity kind of flicker through, even as he's, helping this family, even though he's struggling so much himself.
Yeah, it's a complex moment because on the one hand, you have this brutal act that he's committed.
Right.
But on the other hand, he's showing empathy and generosity towards people who are even worse off than he is.
Totally. And it's at Marmeladov's funeral that Raskolnikov meets Sonia,
Yes.
Marmeladov's daughter,
Right.
who has been forced into prostitution to support her family.
Right. Sonia is such a fascinating character. She represents this pure, almost saintly figure in the midst of all this darkness and depravity.
Yeah.
And her relationship with Raskolnikov becomes the central thread throughout the rest of the novel.
Their connection is so intense. It's like they're two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
You have Raskolnikov, who is consumed by this intellectual darkness.
Right.
And then you have Sonia, who's clinging to her faith and her compassion, even in the face of, like, unimaginable suffering.
And as Raskolnikov descends deeper into his psychological torment, he finds himself drawn to Sonia.
Yeah.
He confesses his crimes to her, seeking some kind of absolution or understanding.
Wow. But it's not just Sonia that he has to contend with, right?
No, there's also Porfiry Petrovich,
Yes.
our investigating officer who suspects Raskolnikov right from the start.
He's onto him.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Porfiry is brilliant. He's this incredibly astute and psychologically perceptive character.
Yeah.
He engages Raskolnikov in these mind games, these cat and mouse chases, almost trying to break him down and get him to confess.
Those scenes are so tense.
Oh, they are.
You can feel the pressure building, this sense that the walls are closing in on Raskolnikov.
Yeah, and alongside these psychological pressures,
Right.
Raskolnikov is also grappling with his relationships with other characters in the book.
Yes.
There's Razumihin, his loyal friend who tries to help him,
Yes.
and Dunya, his sister, who arrives in St. Petersburg with their mother.
Right. And they're both completely devoted to him,
They are.
but they're also caught in this web of deceit and manipulation.
Right.
And then there's Svidrigailov,
Oh, Svidrigailov
this
is there.
morally ambiguous figure who's obsessed with Dunya.
Yes. Svidrigailov is almost like a dark reflection of Raskolnikov, right?
Okay.
He represents the path that Raskolnikov could take if he fully embraces his nihilistic belief.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, it's like Dostoevsky is showing us all these different, like, facets
Yeah.
of Raskolnikov's personality, all the different choices that he could make,
Yeah.
and the potential consequences of each path.
Exactly. And as the story progresses, the tension keeps ratcheting up.
Oh,
Raskolnikov is constantly on edge, knowing that Porfiry is closing in,
yeah.
and his guilt is eating away at him.
There's this one scene, I don't know if you remember it, where Porfiry pays a surprise visit to Raskolnikov's room.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. The tension in that scene,
It's unbearable.
it's almost unbearable. It's like you can practically feel Raskolnikov's heart pounding
Yeah.
as Porfiry is like probing him, circling around him.
Looking for any crack in his facade.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's this relentless pressure combined with Sonia's influence and then Svidrigaïlov's shocking suicide
Yeah.
that ultimately pushes Raskolnikov to a breaking point.
Yeah. Svidrigaïlov's suicide is really interesting, right? Because it serves as this kind of warning to Raskolnikov,
Okay.
showing him the potential consequences of a life that's lived without morality or remorse.
Oh, wow. So after all of this psychological torture, does he finally confess?
He does. Driven by this combination of guilt, pressure, and a desire for some form of redemption, Raskolnikov confesses to the police
Wow.
and is sentenced to 8 years of hard labor in Siberia.
8 years. That's a long time. So is that it?
Not at all. In fact, you could say that his real journey, his journey toward true redemption, is just beginning.
Okay. Then this is where the story takes a really interesting turn.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out what happens to Raskolnikov in this desolate landscape of Siberia, you're going to have to stick with us.
You're going to want to hear this?
Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe
Yes, do that.
so you don't miss the final part of our deep dive into crime and punishment. We'll be right back. All right, so Raskolnikov's in Siberia. 8 years of hard labor. I mean, talk about a change of scenery. He's gone from the intellectual turmoil of St. Petersburg to this harsh, unforgiving landscape.
Yeah. Siberia becomes this crucible for Raskolnikov, almost like a testing ground for his soul. He's stripped of everything, his intellectual pretensions, his sense of superiority. He's really forced to confront the raw reality of human suffering.
It's like this whole experience is chipping away at the walls he's built around himself, you know?
Yeah.
He went into this whole thing believing he was somehow extraordinary, above the moral law. But now he's seeing the consequences of his actions up close and personal.
Exactly. And what's so interesting is that his punishment isn't just the physical labor or the harsh conditions.
Right.
It's the internal torment, the constant replaying of his crimes in his mind. That's what really eats away at him.
He can't escape his own conscience, no matter how far he runs. And then there's Sonia. She follows him to Siberia.
I know. Talk about unwavering devotion.
Unwavering, I mean,
She's incredible.
yeah.
Sonia's presence is crucial here. Right? She becomes the symbol of hope,
Yeah.
of faith, in a place that seems utterly devoid of both.
Yeah, for sure.
And she doesn't judge him. She doesn't condone his actions. But she offers him something that he desperately needs. Unconditional love and acceptance.
It's like she sees the potential for good in him,
Yeah.
even when he can't see it himself.
Exactly. And it's through her that he starts to glimpse the possibility of redemption,
Okay.
of finding meaning in suffering.
But, you know, this is Dostoevsky, so of course it's not a simple, straightforward path to redemption.
Oh, absolutely not.
Raskolnikov wrestles with his guilt. He pushes Sonia away. He clings to these old beliefs.
It's a constant back and forth.
Yeah, he's like a man drowning, you know, trying to reach for a lifeline, but still pulled down by the weight of his past.
Yeah. It's a powerful image.
Yeah. So what's the final verdict? Does Raskolnikov find peace? Does he achieve this, like, true redemption?
Well, Dostoevsky leaves the ending somewhat open to interpretation.
Okay.
We see Raskolnikov begin to accept responsibility for his crimes. He experiences genuine remorse, and he finds solace in Sonia's love.
Okay.
But whether this constitutes full redemption,
Yeah.
whether he's truly forgiven himself, is a question that Dostoevsky leaves for us to ponder.
He's like, I've taken you on this journey.
Yeah.
I've shown you the darkest corners of the human soul. Now it's up to you to decide what it all means.
Right. And that's what makes Crime and Punishment such a powerful and enduring work of literature.
Yes.
It doesn't offer easy answers or neat resolutions.
It's real. It's messy.
It grapples with the complexities of human nature, the enduring struggle between good and evil,
Right.
and the possibility of finding meaning even in the face of unimaginable suffering.
It's a book that stays with you long after you finished reading it.
It does.
It makes you question your own moral compass,
It makes you think.
your own capacity for both darkness and light.
And I think ultimately that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Dostoevsky isn't just telling a story, he's inviting us to engage in a dialogue, to confront these big questions about life, death, the meaning of it all.
Well, folks, there you have it. Our deep dive into Crime and Punishment.
Whew.
A real roller coaster of a book, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A timeless exploration of the human condition.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more literary explorations.
And tell your friends.
Tell your friends. And if you've read Crime and Punishment, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
Yes, let's discuss.
Until next time, happy reading.